back to Self-Love Talks. It's been a while. What can I say? It's been a really crazy time, as I'm sure you've all been experiencing. And now it feels like the most perfect time to come back to you and reshare and rebirth Self-Love Talks. Yay! So thanks for being here. All of you who are showing up right now. Mwah, bless you. I love you. Thanks for being here. Today's show is we're going to right back to the very basics of what self-love actually is. And you can imagine I've been doing my own practice of the kind of self-love that I'm going to be talking about tonight with you. I've been doing my own practice of that for 10 years. I've been teaching it a lot longer and was on the path even way before that. And even though I'm an author, I'm an expert, I'm a speaker in this, my entire life mission, if you like, my life energy is devoted to this path and this topic of absolute unconditional transformational self-love. I have a bunch of people often coming to me and talking about what they believe self-love is. It's almost like trying to get into a debate and say, well, it's this and it's this and it's this. And those are some of the myths I want to dispel tonight. Some of the things that in my experience, and of course I can only speak from my experience, we're going to be dispelling as many of those myths, illusions that people have in self-love as possible. And if you're one of those people and you think, oh, I'm all about self-love and I love myself already and I don't need to listen to this, then I'm going to suggest to you that you may be one of those people in the illusion of what you think self-love is. And I'm not blaming you or judging you through no fault of your own, but just through a sense of awareness and what we've been conditioned to believe, and also key tripsy little ego can convince us into believing is genuine self-love. I'm going to suggest to you that perhaps actually this is something that you need to tune in on and get really real and honest with yourself. Because if you're again one of these people and you think, oh, I love myself now, I've done my self-love work, I no longer need to learn anything more about this topic, I'm going to, nudge you in, suggest that you, sorry, my son's calling me. No, get off. Typical, right? Suggest to you that actually this is something that's to you. Because if self-love is at all important, if love is important to you, if you are important to you, if you are now in a space of awareness where you're starting to realize that you actually matter, right? I'm talking to all of you givers who are servers, who are out trying to do good in the world, trying to do good with others, trying to please others, love others, care for others, nurture others, help others, save others, rescue others, heal others, whatever it is that you're trying to do to create a world yourself actually want to live in. Like, that's why you're doing it. That's why we all do it. We all want to live in a better world. So we're going out there doing the thing which we believe is going to help us feel better about our own existence of being in this world, being in this body. And if you're one of those people, then you've probably gone through a number of events in recent times where it makes you realize, hold on a minute. Maybe that serving others energy needs to start coming back to myself and at least put it into balance and get a new perspective on it and undo some of these old blocks, these old myths, these old conditions, and I would even say gaslighting around having your own deep, authentic self-love. So that's what this show is all about. Self-love talks. I'm going to be going into the deep, the dark, the tricky, the amazing, the cosmic, all aspects of self-love. Because, and the reason I'm doing this, right, not only do I want to also live in a world full of more love, and I realized a long time ago that actually starts with me. I have to be the love. I have to be an environment of love. This me has to be the world of love that I want to live in. so that I can live in me. Does that make sense? I'll discuss more about that so that that really, you know, hits home. But it's like it starts here. And all life really is about our relationships. When you think about it, your existence here right now is your relationship to life itself. It's your relationship that you're having with your own body, the relationship you have with your own mind, with your beliefs, conscious, subconscious, or even completely unconscious. And even if you could go into this realm of the superconscious, the supernatural aspect of yourself, the higher dimensions, the source level, the universal level of your superconsciousness, right? We have so many different aspects of ourselves to relate to constantly. Our feelings, our biology, our etheric body, our astral reality, how we can create things through our thoughts. That's all determined by our relationship with ourselves. It's pretty wild. And then we can also realize that all our interactions in business, in love, in families, in everything that matters to us, success, everything that matters to us is actually on the basis of relationships, the relationships that we have with everyone and everything around us, the relationship we have to our Mother Earth, the relationship that we have to God, to Source, to Spirit. We are basically a multifaceted bunch of relationships to everything. And so understanding our core nature and our core relationship to ourself is absolutely fundamental. Wouldn't you agree? Because if we can get this relationship starting to work well for us, majoritively in harmony, then we can begin to have success in our other relationships with our children, with our parents, with our partners, with our work, with the universe, with Earth, with our bodies, with our minds, with our health, with our mental state of being, you know, with what we're manifesting. You get where I'm going. It's like with everything. So what is real self-love, and what is the illusionary beliefs that are put out there, I believe, to stop us going down the path of an unconditional, self-loving, genuinely self-loving relationship. And I'm going to start with that because the reason I think that, the reason I believe that we are set up in life, consciously or unconsciously, and I'm not saying this from like you are a victim of other people. No, it's how we are responding to the circumstances, how you're responding to those conditions. But ultimately, we will put everything in our path, consciously doing this, i.e. choosing to deliberately, avoiding, or subconsciously avoiding. It wasn't my fault, this happened and I couldn't because that happened, you know, that kind of a subconscious avoidance. And we avoid self-love. And humanity, I believe, has avoided real, unconditional, deep self-love since forever, because it's so powerful. Because if we truly understand what the self is, what love is, and we connect the two, and we become conscious of one's self and love, the purity of it, the power of it, we become, you know, transcendent beings. We ascend the human condition. We can literally undo, dissolve, transform, heal conditions, traumas, disharmony, illness, anything, dis-ease, all manner of ill at easiness or dis-ease with oneself, with life. with the body, mind, heart, spirit. Any dis-ease, i.e. out of harmony, out of balance, we can correct with unconditional self-love. Now, that's my actual experience, and that's why I believe it, because I've seen it. And seeing this has formed me to have that very strong opinion that with true unconditional self-love, we can correct anything. We can restore anything. We become transcendent, very, very powerful beings as a human being, about as powerful as we can become. That's what I truly believe. And that's why I believe that we are eventually, sooner or later, evolving into that level of consciousness. And that's what I want to go into in this video, what that consciousness is, what that consciousness looks like, what the self truly is, what love truly is, and therefore being able to see what it's not. And I really want to, start, I think, with this, what people have this idea of love, which has become very limited, very tainted, very blinkered, let's say. So you might think of love that you have for your partner. And there's certain things that you will do for that love, that you will do to get your partner's love, to win, to earn, to gain, to receive your partner's love, and certain things you won't do. And you have that conditional relationship. There's certain things that you will be doing subconsciously, certain behaviors, certain actions that you will be doing so that that partner stays with you, so that you feel loved, because you have a human need to feel loved. And we learn the patterns that we have with our partner, we learn them first with our parents. You're born as a fresh out of the box, straight from wherever we come from, right? A source energy, I call it. You could call it the void, you could call it the mother. You just come from something into this body. And here you are, you're fresh from that place. And we get a sense of what that place is like by the sense that we have around a fresh newborn baby. Now, those of you that are parents that have seen your child be born, or those of you that have been around babies, you know that they emit a kind of incredible peace. And I don't mean, when they're screaming, when they're teething because they're in lack and they've been neglected, or they're not being held, or they had a traumatic birth. I'm talking about that kind of amazing energy that is all sensorily pervading, like it fills all of your senses when you're with a brand new baby. They're pure. They smell amazing. You just want to hold them. You don't want to look at anything else. I was like this as a mum. Like, I was watching, we were deep into Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I think, way back in the year 2000 when my first child was born. And when I had my baby, I didn't want to watch television, not even Buffy. I was just absolutely mesmerized. I couldn't take my eyes off my child, and I would hold him for hours and hours and hours, and I didn't want to put him down because there is something so captivating. It's otherworldly, it's pure, it's amazing, it's love. It's that energy of absolute pure love. So when the babies come in that way, you think, okay, where have they come from? And I'm not talking just about the environment of the mother. I'm like, the life itself has delivered through the veil somehow, this little being. And then how are you as a baby? What are you like as a baby? You didn't judge, you didn't weigh, you didn't measure, you didn't compare. You didn't manipulate, cheat, steal, lie. You didn't behave weirdly to try and get something. You just unconditionally loved. You were as pure as you've ever been. You didn't yet have that level of judgment and that level of discernment awareness to say, okay, this is lovable, that's not lovable. You hadn't been taught, you hadn't been trained, you hadn't been conditioned. You just loved. And that stayed with you for a certain amount of time as you were growing up. And then the conditioning starts to get in. You were taught, if you do this, you won't get loved. Therefore, don't do it anymore. So you start to train yourself of what you can do and what you can't do that's going to win you love and isn't going to get you love. And you're in a state of survival. So you need to do the things that are going to get you love, because if you're not loved and your survival depends on it, what's going to happen? You'll get rejected. You'll get neglected. You'll get abandoned. You'll get chucked in, I don't know, somewhere horrible. You'll be rejected by your parents, and you can't afford to do that as a child. So you've got to then become accustomed to whatever conditions your parents have on what earns you their love and what doesn't. And that sets your foundation. And some of that goes so deep you don't even notice it anymore. It's so normal to you. Perhaps it started in the womb, that you don't even know, like, what your parents were thinking about, in what conditions you were made mentally, where your parents were at, what they were believing about themselves, about you, about the world, you know, how much they loved themselves ultimately, and how in love they were together and in harmony with their relationship with themselves, absolutely gets imprinted into you the moment you're conceived. And then you're growing in that womb and you're taking in all those little imprints, right? So all of those imprints then come out later. Once you start to develop, those imprints then become visible. You don't notice them when you're first born. You're just pure. But those imprints, that conditioning, starts to become apparent in your behaviors, in your beliefs, in how you feel about yourself, in how you feel about being on the earth, and how you feel about being in the world, and how loved you feel by other people. You see, that sets the tone. That is your foundation for the rest of your life. So you will have grown up making decisions and thinking in your head, okay, well, that was a long time ago, Tara. Then I'm over that now because, you know, I've done X, Y, and Z. And I want to sort of suggest to you that what if you could remember and become recognizant of, reconscious of that unconditionally loving baby in yourself. And you could take that sense of absolute, pure, unconditional love that doesn't say, oh, I've done it, or I haven't done it, or I've loved myself there and I've not loved myself there, or I don't need to love myself because I've done this, you know, and there's that protection, that defensiveness, because maybe I'm suggesting you haven't done enough work or you're not good enough or something, right? It's like, breathe. It's being able to go, okay, pure, unconditionally loving me. That is always there. That will always be there. That is underneath all of the conditions that have been imposed on you, is that pure essence of unconditional love. That's always going to be there. You can't lose that. It's always there. It can get covered heavily with a lot of layers. It can even feel buried and squashed and forgotten about. But it can never, ever be lost because it's actually who you are. It's who you were born as. It's who you are. Is that unconditional love. And what if you could take that purity, that intense beauty, that perfection that loves everything, that has no judgment, isn't conditioned, and say, what if I were to look at myself through those eyes? What if I were to unconditionally love myself? Now, what would happen is you would immediately meet parts of you that have been conditioned to believe that you're not lovable. Conditioned to believe that, well, you know, maybe I'm a bit lazy. Oh, that's not a good trait. I'll try and make a better version of that. Or I'm a bit careless, or I'm a bit messy, or I can get a bit angry sometimes, or I can get a little bit, you know, impatient, or whatever it is, you know. Or it can be worse than that. It can be the darker things like, oh, I know I'm not a good person because I secretly think this and I secretly feel this, and this bad thing happened to me and it made me feel ashamed, and that person told me it was my fault and that it was my responsibility that they were hurting, therefore I feel guilty. And you can start accumulating these really heavy, dark, dense thoughts and feelings. You can also have traumas that have happened to you that have kind of got embedded somewhere down here in that fabric of your growing up, like somewhere in the layers of you growing up. These painful memories, these painful experiences, these things that made you believe less about yourself. And so, you know, in between those layers of, oh, I'm really feel good about myself, there's going to be the layers where you actually don't feel good about yourself because of what the world's informed you that you are, how lovable you are, how good you are, or how good you're not, where you're lacking, where you're less than, where you're not good enough. You know, and it's those areas that actually need that real gentle presence. And here's where we evolve from the pure unconditional loving baby that's just so pure, it's like there's no real awareness there. I mean, there's a hyper awareness on one level of the baby, they're taking everything in. Right, but there's not that development where they can discern this from this and from this from this and kind of, you know, compartmentalize the way that we can now as a grown-up. But to be able to take your own discernment as an adult and say, okay, what if I can tap into that unconditional love that is me, that is within me, that is my source? And what if I can then carry it like bringing water to the dry, empty, barren parts of myself. The parts that are in lack, the parts that are in poverty, the parts that are aching and hurting and longing for somebody to come and take responsibility and love me and make me feel whole again, to fill in those gaps where that love was lacking as you were growing up. Right? Self-love means taking responsibility for yourself and loving yourself, particularly in the places where you weren't loved. Or you were loved, but it didn't quite cut it. It was like, you know that your mum and dad love you maybe, but actually you didn't get the emotional connection. You didn't feel seen, you didn't feel heard, you didn't feel really deeply empathized with and understood, but they love you, but there's a lack. There's a deep sense of something's missing, maybe a deep sense of meaning. Only you know. And would you be willing to love yourself enough to be the one to turn and face yourself? Because we're so busy facing the world saying, look at me, love me, appreciate me, acknowledge me, like me, support me, protect me, make me safe, take responsibility for me, you know? And we give that power away to others all the time, whether it's your partner, whether it's your children, whether it's your friends, your family, whether it's your employer, whether it's the government, whether it's your school or college or university, whether it's God, whatever it is, it's something out there away from you. Take responsibility for me. Love me. Make me feel good. Does this make sense? Fill in the gaps for me. And you're looking. And life really has a way. Life is a very patient teacher. But it's a very stern teacher. And when we're not going the right way, life will kind of, you know, slap us a little bit. It can feel harsh. The longer we have ignored it, the harsher that little slap will get from life. Like a mother, when the child's hand is going too close to the fire and you smack it a little bit and you go, no, look, owie, no, ouch. And you smack that little hand a little, you know, without hurting, obviously, and you go, no, and you're pushing it away. But if the child continues to reach for the fire, continues to think what I need is out there, in there, the stronger that the parent of life itself has to push back and say, no, it's not this way. What you're looking for is not this way. It's not in this relationship. It's not in this job. It's not in this government. It's not in this institution. It's not in this, whatever it could be, a spiritual practice, a book, a belief, or whatever it is. Life will say no. So if you're getting those pushbacks from life in any area, that's life speaking to you saying, no, what you're looking for is not actually there. And it's trying to point you back to yourself. It's trying to get your head and nudge you in the right direction and say, look, turn your head 180 degrees, the opposite way, and look back at yourself. And you be the one to realize, oh my goodness, what am I putting myself through? I'm in pain. I'm struggling. I'm suffering. I feel broke. I feel broken. I feel, you know, XYZ, fill in the blank. What am I doing? How long am I going to let myself suffer? Whether it's with a physical illness, a disease, a mental illness, unwellness, imbalance, problem, trauma, block, issue, an energetic something, an emotional something, right? Any disharmony at all. Would you be loving yourself if you allowed yourself to stay in disharmony, in illness, in sickness, in poverty? Would that be loving? And I really encourage you to ask yourself these questions. And would you be willing to love yourself enough? Because you get to a point where you go, okay, if I've spent 5, 10, 15, 20 years trying to get my needs met, my gaps filled, my being seen, being heard, being felt, being touched, being, you know, whatever it is, in the right way so that I feel whole. And what you're doing isn't working. How much longer are you going to keep doing it, trying to make it work when it hasn't worked for 20 years? Is that a good investment of your time? Is that a good investment of your energy? Where are you pouring your resources into? Right? Take this in. You have to take deep breaths and really feel this and be really honest. Because wouldn't you rather be in a relationship that was honest so that you could actually have a life fulfilled, than be in a relationship that's dishonest, that tricks you, that lies to you, that tells you everything's fine when it really, really isn't? So that actually, when it comes to, you know, moving through your life, and even when you get to the end of your life, you're like, shit, I didn't do it. I didn't fulfill myself. I still have no idea who I am and why I'm here. I still haven't come here and fulfilled my soul. Right? Nobody wants that. That's why I think people fear death, because nobody wants to get to the end of a lifetime and say, well, I blew it. What did I spend that 50, 60, 70 years doing? And if you weren't loving, what were you doing? Right? And so having that relationship with yourself where you first will love you, not I have to love myself now because nobody else is doing it and screw you guys, you know, oh, I'm going to love myself resentfully because you haven't, I'll do it myself, thank you very much. You know? And maybe it's like that to begin with. But again, take a deep breath and go, okay, is that really love? Is that really the kind of love I'm going to give myself? Resentful? Nobody else did it, I better do it myself. Is that the kind of love you want? What kind of love do you want? What kind of love would you be willing to receive? What kind of love do you need to fulfill you? To make all the wrongs right? And would you be willing to be that person who does it? And this is big stuff. It's no light matter to say, oh, I love myself. In some ways it is, because love is like the lightest, easiest, most amazing thing ever. Like I said, you've been doing it. You are love. You were born as love. You were born unconditionally loving. On one hand, it's the easiest thing ever. But to turn back to oneself and to say, okay, can I love myself unconditionally? That takes a lot of heart. That takes a lot of courage. That takes a lot of depth of consciousness. To be willing to navigate your consciousness, bring awareness, bring presence to the parts of you that have been ignored, abandoned, tricked, lied to, manipulated, stolen from, abused. The parts of you that have been lacking, and now you're going to be your own beautiful angel, your own best friend, your own hero, your own life partner, to come and be the one to take from that source within you and to pour the water, to pour the love to all the places that need it. To bring the peace, to bring the harmony that only absolute love can bring. It's powerful stuff. It makes you powerful. And you might think, oh my gosh, that's a lot of work to do. And I hear this all the time, I've been doing my work. I've been doing my personal development work, the work, for years. And I've done this and I've done this and I've heard it. I get it. I've seen it. And people are like, oh, but now if I have to go back and do this more work. And I want to say, like, if you had a little kid and you said to your little kid, you know what, little kid, little Bobby, I don't want to love you today because it's just way too hard work. I'm not going to love you. I'm not going to look at you. I'm not going to be present with you. I'm not going to speak to you. I'm not going to cuddle you. I'm not going to share my heart with you. I'm not going to empathize with you. I'm not going to spend time with you. I'm not going to stroke you and kiss you today. It's too much hard work. No, instead I'm going to go and sulk in a corner somewhere. I'm going to go and like do something reckless and maybe spend loads of money instead shopping, or, you know, because that's easier. Yes, it is easier in some ways to completely abandon and continue to ignore yourself and say that, oh my gosh, you are such hard work. I'm not going to love you, me. But that's not loving, is it? You would never, I hope you would never ever say that to your little Bobby, to your little Peter, to your little Susan, to your little you, to your little kid. You're too much hard work to love. Because loving isn't work. If you're really loving, it's not work. It's who you are. It's you expressing your true nature. It's you being in, aligned with, coming from your true nature, just to be love. And in that respect, because a lot of people get into their head, and this is, you know, where the illusions come from, of what people think love is. And actually, right, let's just get really clear right now. Actually, love is like drinking sweet nectar. It's like drinking water. It's like breathing. It's so natural to you. It's so amazingly wonderful. It's so fulfilling. It's like showering in golden light. It's incredible. It's divine. It's pure. It's unconditional. And to go and shower yourself in that It does take courage because it gets dark in there. There are parts of you that haven't been explored, that haven't been seen for decades. And there's a lot of pain in there. So you need to be properly equipped, right? It's not like if you were going to go potholing one day, all of a sudden, out of the blue, and you know that there's a dragon down the bottom of that pothole, and you're just going to go, right, I'm just going to go face my dragons. I'm going to go love my inner dragon. Like, okay, good luck. You need to be prepared, wouldn't you say? Wouldn't that be self-loving to say, okay, I'm making a decision, and in making this decision, I'm now going to choose to give myself all the tools, all the preparation, everything I need. I'm going to arm myself with information, with the knowledge, with the know-how, so that when I go in and I do that, I'm going to do a really, really good job. It's going to be beautiful. I'm going to bring my light. I'm going to bring my awareness. I'm going to bring my touch. I'm going to bring my consciousness. I'm going to, you're well packed for that epic adventure to go and meet this part of yourself that really needs love, that's deep, deep down. Okay, that would be the loving thing to do, not just throw yourself in the deep end and go, go on, good luck, bye, don't get gobbled up by that dragon. Loving is actually having the awareness to do that, to say, I'm going to give myself what I need. What do I need? You need the know-how, and it needs to be in steps. It needs to be done with real consciousness. So that consciousness needs sharpening up. It needs honing. It needs developing. Right? So this is in fact something which it's not work. It becomes your evolution. It becomes your liberation. It becomes your self-realization. It becomes your self-sustainability. We can really get into that. I'll do another video on self-sustainability and how that fits in the whole sustainability world, sustainability, climate sustainability, all that thing. But it makes you empowered when you have those tools for yourself. And so would you be willing to love yourself enough? And now let's look at those things which people say, I have some of my clients have some self-confessed narcissistic personality traits. And I'm not at all qualified, right? I'm never going to tell you this person definitely is and that person isn't. And I'm not professionally trained as a mental health expert to be able to diagnose anything. I have my own experiences. I have a wealth of experience working with my clients that I do soul readings for, which is being able to see people inside out, literally being able to see how their mind works and what's going on inside of them, as if they're see-through. That's how I see people. And I have some of my clients who are self-confessed, actually, I've got this narcissism, and I do already love myself. So I don't need your self-love method, Tara. I'm fine, if you don't need it, you don't need it. I'm not going to convince you. However, let's also be really honest. Let's be really clear. Where does narcissism come from? It comes from, as far as I'm aware, the Greek myth, in fact, the Holy Grail myth, or maybe even before the Holy Grail myth, maybe it is the Greek mythology of Narcissus, who looks into the pool and falls in love with his own reflection in a pool of water. And then this is also echoed in the story of the Holy Grail with one of the knights, I can't remember the name of the knight, that falls in love with his own image, right? It's an archetypal image. He who falls in love with his own self-image. Now let's understand, self-image is the ego's projection of one's identity. The image is an imaginary thing. It is an imagined projection of oneself. It comes from the mind. It comes from the ego, and the ego is conditioned, created by the parental bond, the connection between the parents, their relationship, because that relationship is the energy that creates literally what's the word I'm looking for? Conceives the child. Just think of it. Two people come together. They have an energetic bond, an energetic connection. Some of it's conscious, some of it's unconscious. Right? Some of it they're aware of, the attraction, maybe the chemistry, but there'll be unconscious or subconscious, trauma bonding maybe, or projections and father projections and mother wound projections onto one another. There's a whole bundle of stuff there. And you can get a sense of that energy between them. And when they come together, it's like they both take their individual ingredients and pour them into the same pot. And that's how you're made. That's the conception of you. Now, that physical conception also creates your concept of yourself. That which you believe you are, your identity, your ego concept of self, your self-image. That's the foundation of it, right there. And then it gets added to, it gets changed, depending on how your father spoke to your mother and how your mother spoke to your father and how that made you feel as the little one in the middle, how that shaped your sense of self as this little thing that was created between these two other entities. You're in the middle. You're in the crossfire. Your ego, your mind, your sense of self gets developed in that soup, in that pot that's added to by both of these people. And then you have the world. And then you have all the other stuff. And you grow up. And you can also, help shape and create your own self-identity. I'm now going to identify as this. I'm now going to believe this. All right, I'm going to remove that version of myself, and I'm going to install a new version of myself. Right? That is your ego identity, your image, your self-image. So you can fall in love with your self-image and go, I've created a fantastic self-image. In my self-image, I'm successful, I'm sexy, I'm genius, I'm amazing, I'm loving, I'm giving, I'm brilliant, everyone loves me, everything I do is right, I never do anything wrong, I'm fantastic, everyone should worship me. In fact, my gosh, I'm kind of like God, I'm perfect. Right? You can create that kind of image of yourself, that kind of identity to a greater or lesser degree. And what is that based on? Where would that kind of identity come from? It actually comes, when I've looked into it at least, this can be debatable, but this is my experience, and that's all I can share with you is my research, my experience with my clients, with my life. And seeing that actually, when I follow this down and go, okay, where did that sense of self-identity come from? It actually comes from a part where it goes, I was absolutely ignored. I was actually lacking in attention. I didn't get the attention that I needed from my parents. Maybe I did get caught in that crossfire. They argued over my head. They fought over who should have custody. They fought who was the better parent, who wasn't the better parent. Maybe they just had their own issues. Maybe they ignored me. Maybe they just were too busy. A whole heap of different situations where you did not get the proper attention. You didn't get the presence, the consciousness, the love that you needed to be seen, heard, felt, connected to, empathized, understood, valued in a certain way. And so you have a choice. You can go, I'm going to start to deal with the fact that, yes, I don't feel good. And you can grow up feeling low self-worth. Or you can go, I'm not going to allow that for myself. I'm going to protect myself where I don't feel worthy, where I've not been loved. And I'm going to develop a false self-image, an image that makes me feel better about myself, to cover up how I actually feel underneath, like a laminate floor. You're just going to laminate straight over all of that really unresolved, unhealed foundation that's underneath. Does that make sense? And then project off that and say, no, I love myself. And really, and honestly, everybody has to take this, you know, for themselves in their own way and apply how you feel is necessary. But if there's any part of you going, no, that's not true, and no, but, and like arguing, that's where I go, okay, which part of me is saying this? Which part of me is arguing right now? Because if it's the same part of your head that's arguing, saying, no, that's not me, because it's desperately trying to keep up this self-image, because without it, you take away that nice, shiny laminate floor of you're perfect and everything's good, and you look underneath and you know that there's monsters under there. There's wriggly things, there's horrible things that were so unbearable for you that you had to cover them over. That was your survival. That's what you needed to do. And here's where it's like, wow, really a lot of courage is needed to say, okay, is that real love? Can I sustain from that? Is it feeding me? Is it working out for me to maintain this sense of false self-love? Because when people talk about narcissistic love, it's like, well, is it really love? Do narcissistic people really love themselves? Is narcissism love? And because narcissism itself is actually a condition of the mind, a condition of the identity, a condition of the personality, not a condition of the soul, not a condition of the heart, then how can it be love? It's a mental disorder. Does that make sense? Where love is actually pure from the heart. And love loves everything. Love doesn't say, I'm only going to love the white, not the black. I'm only going to love the light, not the dark. I'm only going to love the sweet, not the sour. I'm only going to love the dog, not the cat. The left child, or not the right child, or the right brain, not the left brain, or the feminine, not the masculine, or the, you know, choose any sense of duality. Love does not choose. It's not dualistic in nature. Love loves everything. Love is unconditional. And that's what unconditional means, right? No judgment, just love. So how can the concept of narcissism even fit into the same ballpark unless you're saying, okay, can I love the part of me that is narcissistic? Can I truly embrace that damaged part or that dysfunctional personality aspect? Because it is just an aspect. And can I include that? Can I love that? Can I nurture that? Can I actually apply real, genuine love, which will be healing, which will be restorative, which takes back into the whole and reintegrates any parts of ourselves that we've made separate and make them whole again? Does that make sense? And like, what about the parts that we hate? Somebody asked me this earlier. What is hate? Is hate the opposite of love? And I would say hate is like not just an empty cup, but where the cup is so empty that the bottom has dropped down and down and down and down and down into very negative states of emptiness. Not just neutral, empty. Empty's nice, empty's clean, empty's just space for new. But when you drop down and your fuel tank's empty, 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 you go through the anger, you go through the sadness, you go through the resentful, you go through the bitter, you go through the you get to the part that hates, because there's no love down here. So no, I don't think hate or fear or resentment or any of these other states of emotional states or mental states are the opposite of love. In my experience, they are different variations of an absence of love, depending on how deep you go, how much absence of love there is. A small absence or a gigantic, black, deep chasm of absence of love will produce different emotional states and different feelings in the body, which then go on to produce different physical states and mental states of being. And we cover that in another podcast. But no, I don't believe that hate is the opposite of love. Hate is an absence of love. Because love, being an unconditional, all-pervasive, all-knowing, all-present state of consciousness, has no opposite. It encompasses duality. It's also the way out of duality. It's the ascension. It's the evolution. So there, how does that sound to you? How does that feel to you? At the end of the day, you're going to be the one who is the judge. Let you understand what feels right for you and what doesn't feel right, and maybe just doesn't feel right yet because it's still landing. It doesn't yet make full sense. But let me leave you with this one thing. How would it be if you chose to unconditionally love yourself a little bit more today, right now? Would you be willing to notice one little space in your life, one little area of you that needs some real love? Not conceptual love, not fake ego love, which isn't love at all, it's the ego, but actual real love, and choose to give that to yourself. And if you want some help with that, look me up, go to my website, taraloveperry.com, and I have a free course on my website that everybody can just sign up for and access right away. You'll get it through your inbox, and it will just teach you the 7 steps to transformational self-love. And also, right after this podcast, which is going to end in a few moments, I am doing a live Q&A with anybody who wants to come and join me in the Self-Love Lounge. And I'll be there for an hour. If anybody wants to come and join, you have to go to my website to sign up for it. You have to go to taraloveperry.com and click at the top where it says Self-Love Lounge, and just follow the prompts. That page will take you to the page where you can actually learn more about it and sign up and come join me, and all the links will be there for you. Okay, so it's been a total pleasure. I love being back here online on the air with you guys. I'm here every Wednesday live on YouTube at 6 p.m. GMT, and then this will get shared across the other platforms. So thank you, all of you beautiful people, for sharing this time with me and for choosing to love yourself and come home to who you truly are. I love you, and I'll see you next week.